Welcome back to season 2 of the You Were Made to Thrive podcast. I can't believe we're doing a season 2. We have a really exciting episode today all about finances and budgeting. But before we did that, we wanted to quickly reintroduce ourselves in case this is your first podcast episode with us. So I'm Christina, and I've got...
And I'm Brittany.
with me.
And
We're just happy to be here. But we are sisters-in-law. We are co-CEOs. We are co-business partners. We're like co-everything. But we're just really lucky. We get to work together every day on this business and another one, and just do life in general together. We are married to two brothers, Ryan and Jeff. We've mentioned them in other podcast episodes, and we're still working to get them on here, but they're the reason that we met and that we connected in the first place. So we feel really lucky to be family, and to really just be best friends too. So we have a whole episode about us and our story and our journey as moms and business owners and all of the things way back at the beginning of season 1. So we'll make sure that's in our link and information below. We wanted to just give you a quick reintroduction to us and to You Were Made to Thrive. Brittany, you have the best spiel about this company and why we're so passionate about it. No pressure. So do you mind reintroducing You Were Made to Thrive to our audience in case they don't know what we're about?
Sure, absolutely. So You Were Made to Thrive was really just founded, on my couch together. And we just wanted to create a community for women by women. We wanted to create tools and resources and really just create a community where women could come and thrive and be the best version of themselves and give them tools and stuff to constantly, be better in all areas of life, and give them resources that they need at that moment in time, and hopefully grow along with them as they grow and just be a part of that journey.
Yeah. And this podcast kind of came about last year as an extension of all of that, as a way to reach more women and to just have these honest conversations. So many of them are just things that truly happen like in our everyday lives, and how we're kind of coping and working through things as moms, as business owners, as women in the world today. So we are super excited about today's topic. This is something that we're both really passionate about. Finances are kind of the root and the core of so many things in our households, and they, for me at least, can be a source of a lot of stress. And I know for Brittany too, but I'll let her speak her own opinions. But anyway, we have been talking about doing kind of a financial feature, I guess you'd call it, or something along those lines, where we just wanted to really focus on finances and kind of what we've learned. We're small business owners and we have different households and household incomes and all sorts of things. But at the same time, there's things that kind of we've learned over the years, tips and tricks and situations that we've learned to navigate. And we just want to kind of share some of that wisdom with you guys and some of the things we've learned and some things we're still struggling with. I'm not going to pretend like we're experts here, but I don't know. So we're really just excited to talk about this with you. It's something we're really passionate about, especially Brittany. She's amazing with this kind of stuff. So I'm excited to get to trying to talk about it with her. So to really kick off this conversation, Brittany, can you tell me about your financial journey, like what it looks like for you, and maybe like what the hardest part has been for you the last few years, kind of navigating, and if there's anything that stands out to you about your journey itself?
Yeah. So our financial journey, I mean, obviously it's always ongoing, but I'd say I really took an interest to it. It was 9 years ago, because it was right before our daughter was born. I had with the prospect of having a child, and me at the time working full time outside of the home, it became very real that I wanted to be home and I wanted to do something to be with her. But at the time we had so many bills and we were very much, in that struggling stage of early marriage. So it kind of became my goal, my like sole focus was to pay off our debt as much as we could and create a space where I could be home. And so that kind of catapulted our journey. And so we did take Dave Ramsey's Financial Peace University through our church. And, he does say a lot of things that I don't always agree with, specifically the credit cards and stuff like that. Like, we still use credit cards. But I kind of feel like he definitely dramatically like changed our finances. We started like the debt-free journey, as he calls it, and we paid off all of our debt, aside from like our house and student loans. And you know, those type of things. But like all of like our credit cards and like car loans, all of that stuff. And I'd say from that point on, we did go for a period of time with no credit cards because I did go like full gung ho, like we're doing this.
Yeah.
We wouldn't eat out for months. Like we lived it, and it taught us something. Like obviously now we use credit cards, but I feel like we had to go through that period of like of restraint to
Hmm.
kind of learn how to better handle and manage ourselves. And
Yeah.
so we learned from it, and now we're way more responsible, and you know we use them wisely.
Yep.
But all that to say, that kind of started our journey, and you know I'm really looking back proud of like how much progress we have made in this area.
Hmm.
I still am very much like get very anxious like whenever we make a big purchase, even if we have the money saved, because we might put it on a credit card to get like, you know, the $200 off at Home Depot and then like pay it off. But like it's like we have the money set aside, or at least, you know, 90% of it.
Hmm.
And so we know we're gonna be able to make the payments. And so like, but it still like gives me anxiety for whatever reason. Like
Yeah.
I can't. But so I guess going along this journey, the biggest struggle has been we both have irregular incomes.
Hmm.
So obviously with our work, it's just the nature of like it's somewhat consistent, but it can be irregular.
Yes.
My husband, the way he gets paid, it's called flat rate. So if there's not work at his job, he doesn't get paid.
Hmm.
So and he gets paid per job, and it's a whole thing. So we never know how much he is going to get paid on a daily basis, a weekly basis. So that was, I guess, the most challenging piece of the puzzle.
Hmm.
And so I've kind of found ways to predict and budget off of that though, by like it took a while because I had to look back at like years worth of income, and I would pick like the lowest, what was the lowest he ever got paid in like the history of this year, like his lowest paycheck, and that's what I would budget on.
Yeah.
And then anything above that was, you know, I would categorize it like how I wanted to go. So if we had above this amount, it would go here, here, and here. And so
Hmm.
that kind of is what started and like kind of the blueprint for our budgeting and
Yeah.
our financial, like how I plan still to this day. So that's the gist of
Yeah,
it.
no, absolutely. Did you make your own kind of like spreadsheet or software? How do you like physically do your budgeting? Is it by hand? Is it by a computer
Yeah.
program? How does that work for you?
So it's all on Excel. There I have tried different programs, and it just for me it wasn't very user friendly, probably because I'm working like I'm in a way tracking, but I'm not, because I know like I have my set budget amount that I'm
Mhm.
going off of, like, and that in my head like I'm guaranteed that money. Everything else though I have no idea. So I can, that part never changes.
Mhm.
So I don't really need a budgeting app or software. I didn't feel, because like that stuff just it just doesn't change. It's all of our bills are being paid from that, and then it's
Right.
everything else. So I like the Excel just because I can move things around and see it, and it's just easier for me to track because, like I said, everything, the numbers always change, so nothing's consistent.
Yeah.
And so
Do,
it was just easier for me that way and for my brain.
Absolutely no. I look, here's the thing with finances and so many things in life, but especially with finances. I'm a big advocate of do what works for you. And as long as it makes sense to you and the people in your household that make these decisions and are part of these
Mhm.
conversations, then I think that's the most important thing. I think that's been a struggle for us. It's kind of finding a system where we both feel like we're part of the conversation and understanding it. And so if it works for you and for Jeff, then I think that's what matters the most. Do you have any other, I know you're not the only person in the world that's going to come up with that irregular income when it comes to budgeting and like feel the frustration. So do you have any other tips for anybody listening that might be living off an irregular income, and how they can kind of plan ahead or think ahead?
Well, I think the biggest thing is like starting out, like giving yourself grace, because it is, I do think it's very challenging when you're starting out to like just wrap your head around it and trying to base your budget off of like the lowest possible amount. Like
Yeah.
it was, I don't know, like I don't know how else to explain it other than like you just have to think of like worst case scenario, like he gets,
Mhm.
you know, we get the lowest amount possible, what it like has to be paid, and then
Mhm.
everything else like is kind of like an extra, which now thankfully he usually makes well above like what I budget. um but you know, because we keep our costs very low, like I try to keep like our bills and like subscriptions and like all those things like very low, so like those type of things help. That was probably the biggest thing too, is I cut out, like, at the beginning, all extra, like any extra cost anywhere I could find. Like I was like going crazy, like researching, trash companies and all that stuff to try and get better rates, and
Yeah.
really just focused on getting that bottom dollar lower.
Mhm.
Um, but when you're starting out, just give yourself grace, because, if you mess up one month, or, the numbers don't come out exactly how you thought they would, like, it's okay. Like you can try again next month. And just keeping it, I guess, fluid in a way
Yeah.
of it's not set in stone. Obviously you want to not be overextending yourself, but um, I think that just not beating yourself up about it
Yeah.
is key, because it's easy to get frustrated and just kind of like, well, I've already overspent this month, why not go crazy? And you definitely don't want to do that.
Yeah, no, for sure. And I mean, we talk about that all the time on here. Um, you know, it's a conversation we constantly have. It's just that giving yourself the grace to make mistakes, and as Miss Frizzle says, get messy and like do all those things. But like that's how you learn. And I think that that's something you and I have talked about quite a bit, and things that, I'll constantly message you. And sometimes, like, things happen when it comes to money and finances and budgets, like
Mhm.
bills come up, or medical expenses, or the dentist, or something. Like I just had that happen where I had budgeted money for my dental visit, and then I get there and the bill was like, would it be triple the amount I budgeted for? And it was like,
Yeah.
it made me angry. It made me upset. I was mad at myself, but like, I didn't know that it was going to be that cost. Like I wasn't aware. And the best thing I could do was know that we had money in other categories that I had to move it from and take it from, but we covered the bill. We didn't have to go into debt to pay this bill. And I think, to me, that's always kind of the goal. Does it stink when I like can't estimate something? Right? Of course, but that's how we learn, and we can just kind of better predict in the future, and learning to like give yourself that grace and just say it's going to be okay and I'll do better next time is really important, especially with things like this. What is probably your favorite, if you have one, like saving hack or like financial tip? I know you just said that you guys cut out a lot of expenses, like subscriptions, things like that, but is there some other money saving hack or like budgeting hack that you love and like want to share with people?
I don't know. Let me think about that.
I did put you on the spot, so
Um, I will say I tried, like, so whatever money we have, like, above the budget that
Mhm.
I set, once the bills and all that stuff are paid, um, I have, like, what they're well, Dave Ramsey refers to them as sinking funds, and that's just what I
Mhm.
call them now. But so like all the different categories, so like I have like set amounts that I like, if we have an extra $2, then this goes to like entertainment or gifts or miscellaneous category or kids sports. Like I have a category for like everything, and I
Mhm.
kind of have them listed in order of priority. So, and then how much I want each amount category to get. And so I kind of just, based on whatever's left over, kind of go down the list of priority and move that money and the goal that I had set. Like, this is how much I want to put away each month.
Yeah.
The things that are further down the list sometimes don't really get any funds put into them for a while, but that's okay.
Yeah.
They're lower on the list. But I, like you said, the hardest part is probably the unexpected stuff. Like I might have money put away for like home repairs, but it's never enough. Um,
Right.
never enough. Um, so stuff like that is tricky, but I encourage people, like, to plan for those unexpected expenses. That's probably, I guess, my biggest tip is, if you know that, like, and I'm using this as my own personal example, we know our roof is bad,
Mhm.
not bad, but we know it's on borrowed time, I should say. It's almost 30 years old. And we just know it's on borrowed time. So like,
Mhm.
instead of being surprised when, something catastrophic happens, or, comes time, like, oh, we're noticing leaks or whatever, we're trying to like plan ahead and put, that's like the one of the main priorities right now, is
Yeah.
like any extra money we're trying to put away, because we know we need a new roof like within the next year and a half, and that's going to be a big expense. So that's kind of like a goal that we have right now, so it's up there on the priority list. So
Mhm.
I would say, try to, as sometimes unfun as it might be, try to think of like these things that happen, or that could happen, will happen in your life. If you're a homeowner, you know, it could be the roof, it could be the water heater, the furnace, like whatever it is, try to plan for those things. So you're not, you know, just blindsided by it and like, what are we gonna do?
Yeah.
Just try to have a plan. in place.
Yeah, absolutely. I think that's super important. That's actually something. So our house is a little bit is newer. You're fine. So our house is newer, so that's something that in the last year I really haven't done a lot of saving for, because all of our stuff is like our appliances are newer and things like that. Not to say they won't break, but we're at probably at a lesser chance of them happening. So this year I've talked about my dad, I think, on here before, but my dad is amazing, but he is a planner and he is a calculator and I love it because it makes so many things easier. But one of the things that he's fantastic at is like financial planning and just thinking ahead, and so many stories I could tell. But the point was, I knew that somewhere deep in his calculations, he has a list that he keeps of all the stuff in the house, like the appliances, the HVAC system, like all those things. He keeps a list of when they were put in or replaced last, how much it costs, and how much, given inflation and how the, the world is changing, like how much it's projected to cost when he needs to replace it again, assuming it doesn't just randomly break. And so I actually just got that spreadsheet from him, and I'm trying to tweak it with the information from our house. It's obviously different than his house, but going through and kind of, it's really boring, and honestly, I hate it. But knowing the actual numbers or numbers that are close to what things might cost is something that really is helpful for me. I'm one of those people that I can be like, yeah, we're gonna budget for, I like want to change out my kitchen sink and have like a big farmhouse sink instead of the one I have that has a divider in it. But I don't actually know how much it's going to cost. So to me, to like be like, maybe $500, may or may not be enough. I'm not the kind of person that likes to sit there and like do the research of like, oh, I have like these options and the average of these options is this amount. So having somebody create some spreadsheet like he did that I can kind of make those estimates more clear is better for me and for my brain. If I know a set amount, it's easier for me to save. Like when we were saving up for Disney, like even though I knew I was going to buffer the amount that I was given, things like that, having a number to start with of what the trip might cost or approximately what it should cost was a great starting point for me to be like, okay, this is how much I'm going to need. How do I break that down per month? And then also remembering that some months we put twice as much in and some months we didn't put any in, because that's what happens with real life. Like things happen and you can't contribute the way you want, but just knowing that it's there in the effort. And that's been something that I've switched over to using. You Need a Budget recently from the spreadsheet I was using for our budget. And I think that's been a game changer for me to be able to really just put everything, like brain dump all the things that we want to save for, whether like I just made what they call it a wish farm. So YNAB calls it. We can talk about that later, but it's kind of a neat idea. Just like this idea of like these things that you want down the line. They may be urgent, they may not, most of them are supposed to be not urgent. They're just kind of like, if I could do anything with my money, what would I do? And so to be able to put some of these things like this kitchen sink, I don't know when I'll actually swap it out, but I can put it on there. And, eventually if I have an extra $5, I can throw it in and start saving for it. But I like that I can just have the space to lay all this out. I like to put all the information out. And that's something I want to take this appliance list once I finally finish actually putting our information and figuring out what our models and all that stuff would cost, is go in and build a section in YNAB where I can be like, this is going to be household replacements over the next 5-10 years. Cause we're probably in a place, knock on wood, where we won't need a lot of big repairs in the next immediate year or two. But it will happen. It will come. And so trying to be prepared, even so, I think is really big. And starting out small doing that. Like if I start now, $5 is every other month is great. And then when it gets closer, I can start putting more money in and hopefully other bills will have changed. There's just kind of playing that long game with the finances, I think. But anyway, that was a little bit of a tangent, but I agree that like a big part of budgeting is planning ahead. And so I think that that's really great that that's how you are able to approach that.
Yeah. So you mentioned You Need a Budget. So why don't you tell us a little bit more about that and because you just recently switched over to that program, right?
Yes. Yeah. So I started using YNAB, You Need a Budget. It's a app and a desktop. There's a desktop version too. It's similar, I think, to EveryDollar by Dave Ramsey. I used EveryDollar years ago and I didn't like it. And I think I didn't like it. It was just early. Like it was early in the design. So I just think it was really clunky. And I just was like, I'm overwhelmed. And things like figuring out how credit cards work. And obviously Dave Ramsey is not a fan of credit cards. We use credit cards to get travel rewards and gift cards and things. So we always pay them off. So I don't really feel bad about it. To me, it's just like one more way to get rewards. And if we're paying it off, then who cares? So EveryDollar was not really set up to accommodate that. So I think that was also part of the reason I didn't like it. So I had been using a budget spreadsheet that my amazing brilliant father made. And I'd been using it since before we got married. But I was just having trouble really making it what I wanted / needed. And the other thing I was finding is that I was like solely in charge of the finances, which is fine. I mean, I pretty much am still, but it wasn't easy for Ryan to look at them. Like he couldn't look at them and decide if he wanted to pick up dinner or like if we were going to go to the grocery store. And so it made it feel like I was doing a lot of the like, no, you can't do these things. And that's not a fun place to be. So,
Mhm.
having something like Wine App was really important to me because it was something he could put on his phone, and I keep it up to date every single day. I go in and look at it and work on it. So he can see, you know, oh, I want to pick up McDonald's for David, or I want to go do this, and like check that we have the money. So it's been a really interesting experience, like moving our finances into this software. I've been working on it since what, November, I think, because I made the payment.
Yeah.
So it is a paid software. There's a fee, a yearly fee for it. A yearly fee for it, but you can do a free trial for like a month. So basically I could do like one full cycle and kind of see if I liked it. And I did. I liked being
Mhm.
able to like lay out all of our budget items, our bills, and then kind of break it into like our
Mhm.
fun stuff, things like, you know, sinking funds, essentially like holidays, David's activities and whatnot. And then also thinking ahead of like, oh, I can plan for all of our trips this year. I can plan for all of those things a little more carefully. They have a lot of different options for setting targets and like how much money you want. And it's really nice to be able to
Mhm.
see like, I clearly need $50 more for this, or I clearly need $10 more for this
Mhm.
bill. Visually, it's really appealing to me. I did a whole blog on it. So we'll link that in the show notes as well. But there's a screenshot of like what the categories look like. And I'm just like a visual person. I like to see like, hey, I'm in green, like I'm doing well. You know, I just
Mhm.
that like is very powerful to me. So I've really liked that too. And I felt really guilty about switching off of my dad's spreadsheet. And I remember telling him that I was trying out this new software, and he was like, hey, whatever works. So again, just like echoing that
Mhm.
idea that like whatever you need to do, be it a spreadsheet, a
Yeah.
software, whatever. But I love that I can access this on my phone, that I can access it on the web version. It just makes budgeting so much easier. And one of the things I found that I wasn't really doing with the other spreadsheet was that I wasn't checking in as often as I should have, I think. I mean, I was like, oh, once on the weekend or like
Okay.
once during the week. Whereas like with YNAB, I have made it a goal, like every single morning I check in, I make sure stuff that's been cleared is marked correctly. I make sure that all of the balances are up to date. I reconcile like once a week. And it just takes such a stress off my shoulders. That was something I would find is like I would get to a point where it wasn't reconciled. And I was like, well, where did that money come from, or where did it go?
Mhm.
So being able to track it a little more carefully for me has been easier in the software too, just to make sure that like we're really staying on top of
Mhm.
everything and we know what's going on. I also like that I can easily track like my savings accounts. I mean, I have like a separate section on Wine. I've seen like sections and like, I don't know the best way to describe it, like a section might be like our bills. And then I have like all of them listed underneath. And then you get another section, which like my stuff. So I have like the subscription I have for watercolor and like my allowance or like theater tickets or whatever. It's like things I'm saving for myself. And then we have separate ones for like savings and things like that. So I can also track stuff within our savings and say like, this is for this project or this is for this trip, and just be able to
Okay.
like more carefully see everything. Cause that was something too. I'd be like, oh, I'm saving money. I'm saving money. It's like going in the savings account, but like, you just see that lump sum. And I guess for me, it's that mentality too of like I would see the amount sitting in the savings account and be like, oh well, we can buy the pizza and I'll just move it from savings. And so like our savings would constantly be chipped at instead of like
Okay.
more consistently. When I can see exactly what we're saving for, it's harder for me to justify taking the money from it. That's a huge thing for me.
Right.
um I'm still kind of learning the transition from tracking money to actually budgeting. Like we're still kind of making that transition, because I think sometimes
Mhm.
I am much more of a tracker. Like, oh, we spent $50, like, but it wasn't necessarily like the way it was budgeted. So I'm still kind of learning
Right.
that. That's been a new skill. Like I thought I knew how to budget,
Yeah.
but I didn't. I knew how to track my money, which is nothing inherently wrong with that. Like if you have the money and it works for you, but for
Mhm.
me, I want to be more intentional with our money and where it's going and
Right.
how we're saving it and how we're using it, especially long term. That's something I really, and we'll have to do a whole other episode about it. Maybe we can get my grandma to come.
Yeah.
She would love to talk about that. But I'm terrible at like long term, like retirement, like the big
Mhm.
goal funding. And I don't know if your Jeff, your husband, I was gonna say your husband, but like we've had Jeff's name. Well, it's kind of like that. But I find with Ryan, we kind of go back and forth between the like we want to live and like get to do things now and like take the trips now, but then like we also have to like save money.
Mhm.
And I think sometimes we worry that like if we just keep saving money and say we'll do it, you know, next year, the year after, like it's never going to happen. And so it's like finding that balance of like living now but also like
Yeah.
planning ahead, or saving, or like saving for something like a beach house or something. It's really hard.
Mhm.
And so I think that's something I'm hoping that YNAB is going to be able to really help us with, is like just thinking ahead. Like, okay, that is something we want to do, is like have a beach or a lake house or something eventually one day. So like we can start putting aside money now for something. It doesn't have to, just be something 20 years from now, but like we can think about it now and plan for it now in our own way. So I don't know, that was a super long explanation, but I think YNAB's been really, really interesting to use for me. And it's just been such an interesting transition for me to like how I think about money, how we look at our credit cards. Like we were floating a lot of credit card stuff between paychecks, and I learned that term.
Okay.
Like we were basically we were spending money in advance on the credit card knowing it would come in. And so it was like we weren't ever really catching up with our credit card bill. And so it was like I would spend, oh, I know next week we're going to get paid, so let me just put the groceries on now. Or it's like now I'm trying to be better about like, no, we're spending the money when the money's there instead of like floating it on the credit card is what we were doing. We always paid it off, and it wasn't like we were floating months in advance, but that was a bad habit that I think we're finally breaking. So just things like that too, I think have been really interesting to like see in YNAB.
So one thing that just kind of reminded me, one thing I like early on, what we did the cash thing where I took cash out for everything and split it up into the categories, and that's how much we had for the month. And then as we've kind of gotten better and more responsible and like learned how to really handle our money, we made that switch back to like a credit card and like getting the rewards. But one thing that I do find helpful, or at least for me, is because like sometimes you just get good credit card deals, like good rewards and stuff. So like I gotten a credit card and we didn't really use it at all, so I started using that. That's like my grocery credit card, and it helps me. Like the only thing I put on there is groceries, so like I can easily see that I'm within my budget for groceries for the month. And I know that might not be possible for everyone, but that was kind of like, I don't know, I don't know why I like having that separate, but it just helps me to not go over our grocery budget and to like really track it, because I feel like groceries for me anyway is one thing that is easy for me to go over and like, oh well, we have to eat, like, but I also didn't really need to go down that Aldi special find aisle either.
Yep. Yeah. And I think that's something that YNAB has been kind of nice about, because you can budget, and then when you go to pay the credit card, it like takes it from that budget and you can look at the breakdown. I think the hardest part has been figuring out how to pay myself with YNAB, like, and putting it in and doing the budget. Because like we talked about, like kind of that irregular, like I'm getting paid over the course of several days instead of kind of waiting to like pay myself my percentage out of that. I'm just kind of doing it as it comes in. And so I find myself like this month we went definitely over our grocery budget, but I didn't really realize it until later. That was the only thing like visually I wasn't really paying attention to on like how it was tracked. So that's just like, there's like little nuances to all these softwares and stuff. Okay. So not gonna lie, we actually had to split up our recordings of this because we've been talking for so much, but I'm really hoping that people are finding this helpful. So I have a quick question for you, as we've been talking about kind of all of these things. And I know you mentioned your categories. So I have a two-part question. Are you one of those people with your budget that you have like a million subcategories? And second question is how often do you find yourself like reevaluating either the amounts or just the categories themselves? Is that something that's pretty fluid or pretty set? I mean, obviously like bills are pretty set until we get a new amount. But some of the, I would say like fun categories or like the like life categories, like do you find yourself reevaluating or like redoing a lot of those often, or do you find the amounts are pretty stable? That's the word I'm thinking of.
Okay. So like the categories themselves, like you said, the bills are pretty set in stone. The categories, I have like a set, I guess, that never change. Like I call them like I think it's my top 5 or 6. So there's tithes, retirement, gifts, entertainment, miscellaneous, and home repair. So 6. Like those are like my 6 main categories that I will put money away for. So those definitely staples. Also medical bills I have, and vacation are like the next 2 on the list. But the other ones, I guess I'd say I reevaluate maybe at the very least annually, like our goals and the amounts. And I'd say like earlier you'd asked me like what advice I'd give. And that is like early on, it is harder, like when you are kind of like in that mode of tracking more than like, budgeting, I'd say. But as you get more money saved in like your categories, like I am like, it's more of I pull from this category out of our savings. And so I mark it on my spreadsheet. So like everything has like every to the cent is in a category on my spreadsheet. And so like on my spreadsheet, I'll have like our actual budget laid out. And then I have an expenses tab and then a savings tab that lists every category, the goals, the current amount, all of that. And then beneath that, I have like a separator. And then it's like all of, my priority list of the categories are relisted in priority and like how much I'm going to save for my extra of the paycheck. I hope all that makes sense.
Yeah.
And then I have a fourth tab that's like our long-term saving goals. And so those are kind of like the fluid ones, like where you were saying earlier, like you have fun with. So like anything like we dream about doing, like I've been wanting to put pavers around our like not garden, our like front area around the house, like where
Yeah.
most people mulch. And like we have a rock bed. So like I've been
Right.
wanting to put pavers to like frame that in. I got like halfway and then stopped. So like silly little house projects like that I have like on this list. And it might be like in the broad category of like home repairs or home fund, but there are times like I will get specifics. Like when we were remodeling our kitchen, like I had a separate kitchen remodel line. So it didn't just go in like our home repair fund. It went into like our kitchen remodel. So I do have like broader categories, but then when something comes up or something we talk about as a new goal, like I create a separate category for it.
Yeah.
I think that answers your question.
Yeah, no,
But
totally. Yeah.
so like because I like having that like specific goal in mind,
Mhm.
and it's easy to like, oh well, we need this from Home Depot, like let's just pull it from the home fund, but that's also our kitchen money fund that we've been saving for. So like I like having that separation.
Yeah.
And it's the same, like even like I save for like homeschool expenses and like the kids, like I have a general like kids activities fund, but I also know that every spring and fall, at least for the time being, Jeffrey's going to play soccer. So like I have a separate soccer fund for like his fees and like if he needs cleats and all of that stuff. So like I really do try to get detailed with as much as I can.
Yeah.
And like I said, even with like home repairs, I don't know why that's the category that keeps like sticking in my head. Probably because it's always on my mind because there's always something to do.
Yeah.
But like we have like annual expenses. So like where we live, we have to have a service contract with the county to come out and service our aeration septic system. So like it's around like $250 a year.
Mhm.
But that's something like I have to like have in the back of my head. So it's again not in like our home fund. It's in our it's a separate category under the broad topic of home repairs.
Absolutely.
So um so yeah, I think getting detailed with it helps me stay focused on all of our goals. And my husband likes to joke that like if it wasn't for him, I would never have fun. And he's probably not wrong because he does help me live a little. Because I am very like strict and like budget focused, and like he does remind me like sometimes you do have to enjoy life and live life a little and treat yourself, not all the time, but sometimes. So I feel like he's a good balance to me and how I am. Like we always
Yeah.
joke about how he's the spender and I'm the saver. Uh, I don't know if you find one of you or the other in your relationship with Ryan, but I know for us that's definitely how it plays out.
Yeah. Oh no, Ryan's definitely a spender. So, but I, it's interesting because I like to think of myself as a saver, but I don't know that I actually like I am. I am,
Yeah.
and I do. I feel like I'm one of those people where I'm more like, oh well, we have the money and I want to do this thing, so I'm gonna do it. But then I'm also at the same time like I can save things. Like I have been saving my sister and her husband, they have a friend who does these paintings, and this is I'm saved to spend this money. But it's like when I have a very specific goal in mind, like I knew that he was doing this painting, I knew I was gonna have to pay him money, so like I've had money sitting ready to pay this guy since like last April, like not April, October, excuse me. It's like been sitting there ready to write this check, but like so I can do it when I have a very specific goal, but like I find myself with things like right now I have tuition that I have to pay right for school, and I find myself like, yeah, I need to save money, and I am, and I'm making payments, but it's like, it doesn't feel like it's as much of a priority as it should be. Like, and that's what I'm kind of struggling with is like, I think I have too many things in my mind that are like of equal importance. And so I kind of need to play that game of like, how do I reorder it? And like, how do I prioritize? Because I do, then I feel guilty when like I didn't get to put as much aside, as I wanted. And I think it's just that being fluid, right? Like being fluid, knowing what the priority is. And like the reality is my loans are not in repayment yet. They are not accruing interest. So not paying on them right now is not the worst thing in the world. But at the same time, it's like, if I can reduce how much I take out in the first place, then I feel better. So it's just kind of like playing that game of like, what's the biggest priority? Whereas like I have a car
Mhm.
loan that I wasn't really planning to get in the last few months. And so like that does have interest and I need to pay it. And I'd rather put the money there right now because that's kind of, in the end, I'm going to pay more doing one or the other. So it's kind of like playing that game and like knowing what needs to be taken
Mhm.
care of first, I think too. Um,
Yeah.
and I think I'm also walking that line right now with mine app of like putting everything. It's like something happens. I'm like, oh, I need to make a budget line for that now. Like this thing happened.
Mhm.
And so like I'm trying to find the balance of over categorizing, but also like being able to like think ahead, like knowing
Mhm.
that there's things that are going to happen and trying to just, again, because I'm of that mindset, like if I know exactly where this money's going, I'm going to feel
Mhm.
better about it. And it's also just like, I didn't have things this broken down before. So like, this is totally new for me of like being
Mm.
able to see all of
Okay.
the things that we're trying to save for before, which is kind of broad categories of like food and like allowance here and like this. But now I'm trying to be more specific about like, I'm doing these watercolor things. Like I want to have money to spend on supplies. So like that's an important item
Mhm.
to me. Or like I'm really big into theater. So being able to go see a show every other month or something is important to me. So like being more strategic about how I'm approaching where the money's going. And that's to me
Mhm.
like the biggest thing about this year in general, not just our finances, but like I want to be more intentional and more content with what we
Mhm.
have and less of like, we need to do all these things, you know? And so
Yeah.
um and it's not like it's not put us in a bad place and like we're lucky enough to be in a place where like doing doing those things
Mhm.
is fine, but I could still be more intentional about it. And I think that's, I was literally just having this conversation with Ryan the other day because um in the last few weeks I bought tickets to see a couple different shows that I probably didn't need to all do back to back. It was just, things happened. It was like my friends asked me about one show and my family asked me about another. And I was like, yeah, I want to see him. I knew I was going to go see, one of those couple of shows. But it adds up. It adds up quickly, and I did the
Mhm.
thing where I was like, I kind of floated somebody where like this ticket is like due to my mom. Like I need to pay her back. And I'm having to wait, so it's I looked around and I basically was like, I should have said no. Like I should have said no to one of these because we just like really truly didn't
Mhm.
have the money funded, right? Like I knew it was going to come in,
Mhm.
but like that's what we're trying to change, right? That like the money wasn't
Mhm.
there, so I shouldn't have spent it. And he looks at me, he's like, yeah, I mean, yeah, probably. But at the same time, he's like, but you want it to go, you know that you're gonna be able to pay for it. Nothing's due tomorrow, like yada yada yada. And that idea of like you have to occasionally live, but I'm also like, am I that kind of person that's like treating herself way too much? Like needs to rein it in a little bit. So I think too, like I just carry our finances like so personally. Like I take it so personally. And it sounds weird, but like it's like a personal failure if like a category is not
Mm.
like fully funded or like I had to overspend for something. Like David's birthday party. So I always save a certain amount of money every year, kind of the end of, through December into January for his birthday party. And that covers food, decoration. Like I don't pull from our normal grocery budget for that. Like it's a separate thing. So like I tried to remind
Mm.
myself too,
Okay.
like January felt kind of weird budget wise because first off, we haven't had a paycheck for Ryan since middle of December. And we had this party and we had other things like the dental bill came up. So like all these random things have happened that like wouldn't have happened every other month.
Mhm.
So but at the same time, I'm trying to be better about those things. Like David's birthday is going to happen again next year. It's an annual thing.
Mhm.
Like it's going to happen again. So being able to look at it like instead of waiting till December to save $400 to cover
Mhm.
party gifts, all those things, I can space that out over the 11 months between now and then. So it's like
Mhm.
how much ever that would be a month, like $30 a month or whatever, like,
Yeah.
which is way easier to take like from our paycheck than trying to do $400 at once. So I think that's
Mhm.
the other thing. I'm just trying to remember myself, like, this is a change. I'm also coming off changing systems, like all at
Right.
the same time. And so we haven't really like lived in this system fully. Now we're starting to, right? Like now we're starting to
Yeah.
get past some of these things. But I like take it so personally. I'm like, I've like cried over it and been like, I'm just like a failure and I shouldn't be
Oh,
allowed to do the budget, like all these things. And it's just,
no.
but like this is one of those things that until you start doing it, you don't realize what it is really like.
Mhm.
You know what I mean? And I think
Yeah.
we just kind of got in those habits of like, especially running a business, like being home all the time. I'm the first one, and I constantly text you for like the moral support, but like I'm the first one to be like, just go get the pizza because I'm so tired. It's
Right.
like, and it's like things like that I have to learn to be better about, like more disciplined. And that's all it is. It's discipline, right?
Mhm.
And we've never been in a like I always try to myself, like we've never been in a bad spot. We've never been in a spot where like we're piled under debt. Like we've done a lot of things right. Right. I say
Mhm.
that in air quotes because finances are not the same for everybody. But um but I just want to do better. That's constantly my goal is like
Hmm.
to do better. And so I hope that all of this rambling from me especially, but both of us, is helpful to other people. Just know like you're not alone in your financial journey, and it's always tricky. It's like I don't think it's ever going to be
Hmm.
easy. I think even people who make millions, like they still have to figure out where the money's going. Like it doesn't last forever. You know what I
Yeah.
mean? So I think that's the important thing too. And I keep seeing this picture, I'm sure it's for a budgeting software or something, but it's just like this reminder that like if we can't handle and learn how to like budget and deal with like $1,000, then we won't be able to do it with millions. Like you have to learn these
Right.
things and like just start somewhere, right? Like start somewhere and just try. Like my goal, for February, maybe it's just to be like, we're actually going to stay in the grocery budget. Like we're actually going to stay in the budget without me like moving money around from other categories, like really just truly like staying into that. Um, and looking at the last couple months and saying like, what can we adjust so that that's more possible? Like maybe we do need to increase it and like be realistic with the fact that like we do spend more on groceries than I thought or something like that. Like, prices are changing too, like those kind of things. Like this month we stayed
Hmm.
within our gas budget and I'm really happy with that. Like we haven't overspent like what I estimated,
Good.
and that's great. We did on the groceries and we did on eating out, but I'm trying to remember that like things
Hmm.
happen and life happens, and sometimes you do those
Right.
things. It just means that I like won't be able to put as much away for tuition or something. So but like being honest with myself about the real consequences, again I use that in air quotes, consequences
Yeah.
of like these decisions, right? Like so yeah, that means our savings aren't getting as funded. So what are we missing out on by what is more important, the pizza now or like saving a little bit more money so I don't have debt in 3 years? I think it's like some of those decisions, getting better about making those in a more
Hmm.
responsible manner, I should say. But I don't
And
know, I just feel like
I,
there's also been this huge change. I don't know if you see this too, but like with your friends or like the people but like I've noticed a huge shift. Like people want a budget, like they want to make sure they're in control of their finances. And I don't know if you're seeing that too, but it makes me like happy that maybe some like we'll be able
yeah.
to like better handle things together, like as a group of people generation, but like
Hmm.
that we're learning how to make these smart decisions. It makes me like hopeful, I guess.
Yes,
I don't know.
definitely. Because I feel like Jeff and I, we definitely were like the first out of like groups of friends on both sides to get married and to start a family. And we very much like had to say no to a lot of things because we had these goals in mind and we just didn't have the money in trying to do these goals and hit these, pay off our debt and save money at the same time. So it was definitely a hard, I'd say like 3 years of like we said no to a lot of stuff that would have overstretched us. Maybe we could have swung it, but it would have meant like sacrificing our goals. And at the time, I personally, Jeff was probably a little more willing to do that, but I wasn't. Like I was very just had a goal in mind and like laser focused. Um, and I'm glad because, quite frankly, looking back on it, I'm like, I don't know how like I did that like for that long. So I'm thankful for younger me um, that did that because it would definitely be challenging to be as strict as I was. Because, like you said, I am probably the first to be like, yeah, just get the pizza because I'm done.
Hmm.
Where back then, like I was like, no, there's no way we cannot eat out. Like,
Yeah.
absolutely not. Like, um, but looking at the journey and everything, it's so inspiring to like hear you and like your goals and stuff like that. And I think that it's great for everyone that's getting on this like but like I don't want to say budgeting kick. I hope it's not a trend. I want it to be a thing that stays.
Yes.
But to take control of your money and your finances is such a powerful thing.
Yes.
And it does so much, not just for you but for your future and the generations and stuff. And I just think it's so impactful and just it changes lives. So um I hope that everyone listening has found this something in here, some nugget of information that you can take with you to inspire you and to help you along your budgeting goals um just even if you're just getting started, just know that even if you're still in the phase of like transitioning and maybe tracking money, it does take time to kind of analyze what you spend your money on and how much you spend in the certain categories before you can really make an accurate budget that you can stick to. So just give yourself grace in the process. And we'd love to hear from you. If there's anything in this episode that you loved or you want more of, or something we didn't touch on at all that you'd like more information on, please let us know. We'd love to hear from you and see how we can better serve you. And Christine, do you have anything else you want to leave our listeners with?
I don't think so. I mean, I just figure out what your priority is, and understand it's not going to be the same as the person next to you. I mean, even the two of us, like, we sit there and we have different financial goals, and the way we look at things are different, and that's okay. And just do what works for you. Like, do what works for you in your household, whatever that looks like. And just remember that budget and money and all these things are fluid, and they're going to change, and depending on the stage of life you're in, the job you have, the situations, like, things are going to be different 5 years from now. Our budget's going to look different than it does now. Things are going to be higher priority that they are low priority now. Like, things change and shift, and it's okay. So just, be flexible, give yourself that grace, and just keep trying, like, keep trying to figure it out. And I don't know, I think that's kind of how we've gotten where we are. And like I said, I'm not an expert, like, definitely not at all. But I think just pushing through and continuing to, like, understand this information, it's been really powerful, like you said. So I hope it's encouraging to somebody out there.
Absolutely. Well, thank you all for listening to our episode in this season 2 of You Were Made to Thrive, and we can't wait to talk to you next time.